Well, good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Once again, my name is Bob Upton. I am the Executive Director of the Revere Chamber of Commerce. It's so great to see such a wonderful turnout here today. Thank you very much for making the effort to be with us. We appreciate that. We hope that everyone has had a chance to get something to eat. You can continue on eating. We have a program that we're going to begin in about 2 or 3 minutes. I'm going to stop that now. But I just want to let you know that it's so great to have everyone here and to see the hall as filled as it is. We hope that you can appreciate some of our new branded materials for the Revere Chamber of Commerce. This was voted upon by the Revere Chamber of Commerce, our executive board and our board of directors and all. And we just wanted to make sure that we make you feel comfortable here and also represent our members. Many of you are members of our Chamber of Commerce, and for those that aren't, we would encourage you to consider membership in the Chamber of Commerce. We also certainly want to welcome all of the guests that are here with us to make this a very special day for all of us. If I can ask Staff Sergeant Mitkus of the U.S. Army Recruiting Command to please come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Staff Sergeant Mitkus. Staff Sergeant Mitkus is part of the U.S. Army Recruiting Leadership Team, but we also have some special guests from the U.S. Army with us as well. And I'd like to first introduce Colonel Dina Wandler from the U.S. Army Recruiting Brigade. She came here all the way from Washington, D.C. to be with us. We have Lieutenant Colonel Anzalone from the U.S. Army New England Recruiting Battalion Commander. That's a comfortable name here in Revere, Colonel Anzalone. And as I said, all the rest of the members here are from the U.S. Army Recruiting Leadership Team. We have representatives here from Mass Water Resources and the Mass Port Authority. We thank you very much for coming and being with us here today. I'd like to recognize in no particular order except for the order that they signed in, because that's probably going to be the most fair and equitable way for me to do this without offending anybody. Representative Ira Novoselsky, City Councilor, Ward 2. City Councilor Arthur Guanasso, Ward 3. Charlie Patch, City Council, Ward 6. Michael Ferranti with the School Committee. Stacy Rizzo, the School Committee. We have Peter Felt, who's representing Tony Zambuto, who could not be with us, unfortunately. Thank you, Peter. Of course, we have Mayor Brian Arrigo. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We have State Senator Joe Boncory with us. And the Speaker of the House, State of Massachusetts, Robert DeLeo. Additionally, we have Chief of Police James Guido in attendance with us. We also have Michael Zaccaria, who's a candidate for Councilor at Large with us, as well as Dimple Rana for Councilor at Large with us as well. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Of course. State Representative Rosalie Vincent. I don't know why I did not see that. I'm terribly sorry. Please accept my apologies. I think that's most everybody. I would like to, at this time, invite Mayor Brian Arrigo to come up and say a few words. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bob. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming out today. And it's a great turnout, and I think that's a testament to the great work that the Chamber does. So, Bob, keep up the good work. It is obviously an honor to have our state delegation here today in the city. Starting off with the Speaker of the House, Bob DeLeo, who has been an incredible champion for the city of Revere. And our delegation is one of the strongest that any mayor has. And to have this kind of support is incredibly important. Helps make my job, helps make me more successful, make the city more successful. And I can't think of three better people to represent the city of Revere up at the State House than the folks that we have with us today. So thank you for all your hard work. And just to touch on a couple of things that are going on in the city, just on Monday night, the City Council actually approved a zoning change for the NECO site, which will allow the new ownership there, which is called Atlantic Management, to start the process of getting some high-quality tenants that will be focused on robotics, advanced manufacturing, and biotechnology. So that's an exciting step for the city to be able to attract those kinds of tenants and those kinds of companies into the city of Revere. And anyone who's been reading any news lately knows that there has been a lot of conversation about the Suffolk Downs site and the ongoing Amazon drama. And I will say that, and I've said this publicly already, that there is no other site, in my opinion, in North America that checks off the list what Amazon was looking for in their RFP. Public transportation, access to an international airport. That site has 160 acres that's owned by one owner. That would be obviously a game changer for the city of Boston and the city of Revere. And I look forward to working with the mayor, Mayor Walsh, to make sure that we put forward a solid proposal. But that is on the radar for the city, and I think that site is one that will be competitive not only in the region, but throughout North America. So there's a lot of exciting stuff happening in Revere. We're looking forward to continuing the great work that we do with our legislative delegation and with the chamber. So thank you, Bob, for all your great work, and look forward to hearing some great commentary from our leaders up at the State House. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I also would like to recognize the representatives from the Winthrop Chamber of Commerce, the Chelsea Chamber of Commerce, and the East Boston Chamber of Commerce. We really appreciate your support and you being with us here today. So thank you very, very much. You know, I happen to be the person standing here in front of you, but it cannot be done by one person. You know, the Chamber of Commerce is run by our board of directors and led by our president, Mr. Michael Nicastro, who is here today. If I could ask the executive board and the board of directors for the Revere Chamber of Commerce to all please stand. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. I am going to turn the program over now to Mr. Ed DeVoe, who's part of our Government Affairs Committee, he and Steve Williams. Ed DeVoe happens to be the chair of the Legislative Update Luncheon that we're conducting here today, of course. Ed is going to lead us through the rest of the program, and we will bring Mr. Nicastro up upon the end of this program. But I would like to introduce Ed DeVoe, who's helped so much in making this happen today. Thank you very much, Ed.
Thank you, Bob. Well, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce the members of the state delegation that are going to be here today, and we're going to have them up here one by one. And we're going to start off with Speaker Bob DeLeo. Speaker DeLeo, if you'd like to come up.
Thank you, Ed, for that great introduction. I do better in North Adams than the Berkshires, for Christ's sake. And it's great to see, I got a little nervous here when I saw so many Army recruiters. I wasn't sure. I've got a couple of members that I really would like to talk to you about that you may want to take a look at, actually. But I sincerely want to thank the members of the Revere Chamber for having us here today. And also, a thank you for the kind words of Mayor Rigo, as always, again. And also to the counselors in the school committee, folks who are here. You know, I've been very fortunate in two different ways. First of all, as the state representative, or one of the state representatives from this great city, to have the opportunity to work with some really great people at the local level. Many times that doesn't always happen. I can tell you, I think my colleagues would agree with me. But the relationship that I've had with the local leadership here since my very first election has been outstanding, and I want to sincerely thank them. And that also applies to my relationship again with Senator Boncory and Representative Vincent. Again, you know, sometimes there are some personality conflicts, if you will, or whatever it may be, but we don't have that here in the city. Everything we do, you know, we do, you know, together. And many of the items in the budget that I'm going to talk to you about really would not get done, not just because of me, obviously, but because of the work of our good friend Senator Boncory, by the way, who in his relatively short period of time has really hit the ground running, has become one of the most respected members of the Senate. And of course, Rosalie Vincent, who really, when she came into the office, really knew what it was all about, since she had been working in the office for about 20 years and has just been an outstanding representative. So although I'm going to take most of the credit for the things that we do, they help out a little bit, well, you know, once in a while. These things wouldn't get done seriously without them, and I want to thank them as well. I enjoy really going to Chamber of Commerce's. Obviously, this is great to really have the opportunity to speak within my own district. But as I travel throughout the state now as speaker, I really find it really valuable to me in terms of speaking to Chamber of Commerce's, because it always gives me a good idea in terms of what's going on in terms of not only the business world, but what's really going on in cities and towns throughout the Commonwealth. And this particular chamber, I would say, really serves as a model, I think, for the gateway cities throughout the state. So to all the members of the chamber, congratulations. Mike as the president, and Ed as well, and Bob, thank you for the unbelievable work that you all do. And again, this is Revere, you know, since the very first time that I was elected, has become almost like my hometown. It was like a second hometown to me. It's funny, the number of people who see me here so often, who will often say, gee, why don't you run locally, you know, as well. And I have to appraise them of the fact that I although they may not know this, but I don't live in the city. But I think that the Chamber is also an organization that really has created what I consider to be one of the most tight-knit communities that there are throughout the Commonwealth. And for that, I think it also fosters a better economic climate, if you will, and for that, you know, I thank you. I've had the honor to represent this great city since 1991, or a portion of the city since 1991. And I like to say that whether it was my role, first of all, as a newly elected state representative back then, moving up the ladder, so to speak, to various chairmanships of various committees, or now as Speaker of the House, I hope that you understand that one of my objectives, and no matter what I've done, no matter where I started and where I am right now, my major objective has always been to the people that I represent, right in Winthrop and right in the city of Revere, and I hope you understand that, because that is something that I never varied from. You know, it's funny, when I was first elected, I was the kid from Winthrop. I don't know, Joe, if you sort of face the same thing once in a while. And I first, you know, ran here, and I did extremely well here. But there were some folks who said, oh yeah, another guy from, you know, Winthrop, here we go. Since the very first day that I was elected, I tried to prove to people that this city would get the same equal representation and all the effort that the people from the other part of my district get as well, and hopefully, I think I've tried to prove that. I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the Commonwealth, a little bit about the budget, and then we'll have the senator and the representative also talk a little bit about other things as well. One of the things that the mayor had, had alluded to was the situation with Amazon. That we've already had discussions. I already had discussions with Mayor Walsh as well, and the senator and the representative. But I can remember when we had General Electric, coming into the state. And it was fascinating as I was talking to some of the folks from General Electric and the governor and the Senate president about how we could get them to come to Massachusetts. One of the things that was raised, first of all, was how can you make it attractive? And with most big companies, attractive means, what can you give them financially, what type of tax deals and whatnot. And I'm going to be very honest with you. We didn't come close to some other states in terms of what we could do financially for them, especially the state of New York. So if they just had made that plan based upon what financial considerations they were getting, we probably would not have been in the race at all. But they didn't. They considered other things that Massachusetts offered that other states didn't. And it's unbelievable. But one of the primary things that they considered was how well we got along as a government. How well that I and the Senate president worked with the governor to get things done. As a matter of fact, we had a meeting of the National Conference of State Legislators just a month or so ago. And the very first item on the agenda, which attracted over 2,000 people, was to talk about how Massachusetts elected officials get along. And when that was first brought up to me, that was going to be one of my roles at this national meeting, I was just, I was flabbergasted. I said, you want me to talk about how I can get along with someone? And you want me to spend about an hour and a half, doing this? But quite frankly, that's what the story, one of the stories with General Electric was. That they were so impressed in terms of where they were before, in terms of the infighting and whatnot, in terms of how we were able, although we may disagree politically on certain issues, like the 60 vetoes we overrode yesterday in the House, once in a while. Bottom line, we get along. We know at the end of the day, we're there to represent the good people of Massachusetts, and we put our egos aside and get things done. And the other thing, quite frankly, was the fact of our unbelievable education system that we have. Our educated workforce was a major driver. And as I look at the, we had when I had a meeting with the governor and Senate president on Monday, the issue of where are we going to go, relative to Amazon, obviously was the first item of the agenda. And I said, I think, as always, I've got the answer for you. And I brought up obviously Suffolk Downs, after discussing it again with all of my colleagues. And I was reading in one of the papers, I don't know, it was today or yesterday, and they listed what it was that would make what they were looking for in Massachusetts. And I couldn't, believe it. It was like taking an open book test or something like that. We had every single one of the criteria. The only one that may be an iffy is the cost of housing, I think, maybe as pertains to other cities. But out of the 8 or 9 different factors, I think that Massachusetts is going to be able to make a good case relative to bringing it here in Massachusetts. But again, that's something that's in the infancy stage right now, but I think it is something that we have to keep on looking at. It's also been very gratifying to see that in the U.S. News World Report, they did a recent ranking of states throughout the country that are the best to live in. And what was wonderful to see is that Massachusetts was voted as the #1 state in the country in which to live. Don't you ruin that when you speak, by the way, like you did last time. Well, Corey's going to try to take that down, but I don't know. I think you're going to see that in a lot of political ads next year. Probably his, too, even though he's the, whatever. But anyways. And we're also very fortunate in the sense of also probably having the most educated state in the nation as well. When you look at our test scores, when you look at what's happening in our colleges, our universities, Massachusetts still is ranked as one of the highest. Also, when you take a look at the state's gross domestic product, we're growing by 4% compared to the national average of 2.6%. That being said, we must continue to be vigilant when it comes to the fiscal landscape here in the state as well. As some of you know, and I can say that we all know working in the legislature, that there's somewhat of an interesting discrepancy, if you will, between what's happening relative to our tax collections and our formidable economy, booming construction industry and the growth of other industries. And I'm considered to sometimes be amazed as we're talking about, we're in the process of doing our budget. And for instance, like last year, when we were just about coming to a conclusion or an end, and where it was found that we had to make some, 500 million to 800 million cuts in our budget. And it's amazing to me because as I travel not only within my own district, but as we all travel throughout the state, and we see these apartments going up, the road work being done, the cost of everything, the real estate and how high it is, yet in some ways that has not translated into the type of tax revenues that we have that we have expected. And I can tell you that this something, by the way, isn't just germane to Massachusetts. Last week I had the opportunity to attend the speakers conference in Columbus, Ohio. Speakers really know how to go all out when we get together. Great city, it was wonderful, to be there. But there is a time when we have just a meeting among speakers of the House, wherein we just talk about different issues that we may have. How are we getting along with our colleagues in the Senate, for instance, or the governors, or whatever it may be. And it's interesting, a lot of the issues that we are facing are being faced throughout this country. As a matter of fact, I'm happy to say, with all due respect to my other colleagues, other speakers throughout the country, that we seem to be doing a whole lot better than other parts of the country in terms of where we are in our economy. And though our economy may be growing, the same isn't true in terms of what's been going on relative to the wages keeping up. In addition to that, what has also been fascinating is you read some of the economic indicators. Consumers aren't buying cars, which has been really a major factor in terms of where we are, not only as a state, but as a Commonwealth. And the Washington Post has stated that as these unprecedented changes occurring are happening from coast to coast. But we are, I can tell you, in the legislature, making targeted investments, I should say, to sort of remedy this wage gap issue that we find ourselves in, and while at the same time making sure that we take care of the neediest amongst us, while making sure that we spend our money wisely. And our cities and towns are often the stewards of those investments. And as I can tell you again, as I mentioned with your local elected officials, that here in Revere, with the mayor, the council, in the school committee, we have a strong and insightful partner with regard to that. Some of the local highlights of some of the district priorities which we have, I think for the past 3, maybe 4 years, or probably since I've been speaker, we've had an amendment in our budget both in the House and in the Senate as well, relative to the Revere Chamber of Commerce receiving a $25,000 grant. And I'd have to say that this chamber has really put that money to exceptional use. Most recently, they have enhanced their online presence, including the creation of a mobile-friendly website, I am told. And many times we talk about the importance of bringing visitors into this great city, especially in the summer. And I think that this money will make this city much more accessible and a welcoming place. We have also funded $250,000 earmark for Revere's child safety programs, which have gone to various items. I know the mayor and I know the police chief was here earlier as well, and $250,000 for CAPIC as well. And it's good to see Bob Rapucci, who writes to me every other day to make sure that that money stays with it. I'm not exaggerating, right, Bob? Sometimes twice a day, right, pal? I would have to say, you know, that the governor, who as you know, I work very well with, again, vetoed a couple of these items. But I'm taking a look, as you know by my actions yesterday, of taking a look at overriding some of these vetoes, and we'll see where we go with that. There's also one of the initiatives is relative to Revere Beach. And I think Representative Rosalie Vincent, who probably knows Revere Beach probably better than anyone, is going to talk a little bit about that in a little while. And one of the most important things, and again, being a former local elected official, as I was in the town of Winthrop, as a member of the Board of the Selectmen, one of the major items, one of my major priorities, has been the situation of local aid and education funding. And I'm proud to say that in this year's budget, both of these items were, we have provided historic numbers, more money than we ever have before. And when I talk about education as well, I'm also talking about early education. And I see some of my friends over here, from one of my neighbors from Winthrop as well, because that has been one of the priorities which I have had, because I have seen consistently that those children who get that early education, how well they have progressed in terms of later on in life, in terms of their jobs, their possibilities for college education and the whatnot. So that has been one of our priorities as well. In addition to that, I will tell you again, in both the House and in the Senate, opioid abuse continues to be an issue that we're dealing with. Now, one of the things that I had mentioned last year was the fact, again, at the speakers conference, that we spent about a half a day just talking about opioid abuse. And one of the things that I learned very quickly, that this is an issue that is far beyond Massachusetts. Okay, it exists in every other state in this country, to the point where, again, out of a 3-day conference, about 25% was talking about opioid abuse. And that's what I've continuously heard. I not only heard it there, but I was asked to speak to a group of judges once came into Boston, and they asked a favor if I would speak to them. They were from Turkey, I think it was, or whatever country it was. And one of the major issues that they wanted to talk to me about, what we were doing relative to opioids as well. So I think I can almost safely say it's not only a state issue, a local issue, a national issue, but I think it's become an international issue as well. And I want to congratulate, again, the city for the great job that they have done to get involved with issue as well. And as a result of which, we secured some $50,000 worth of funding for SUDI in our state budget as well. And I want to, again, praise the city for taking that step in embracing peer recovery. So those are just some of the things, that are, again, going on relative to the state budget. I know we're going to, like I was telling, the members yesterday, we're going to have a very extremely busy fall. We're still taking a look again at some of the items in the budget. We'll also be taking a look at criminal justice reform that some people have spoken to me about. We're also going to be taking a long look in terms of the cost of health care, which again continues to be a major issue in our state and again throughout the country as well. But make no mistake about it, and as I stated earlier, the feedback and the interest that I hear from, most importantly, from the people that I represent here in this great city is very, very important to me and will always be one of the most important items that I hear from. And I want to sincerely thank you that you've given me in terms of the opportunity to represent you up on Beacon Hill. Thank you, everyone, and God bless.
Thank you.
Give him a longer introduction.
Oh, I was going to say, Speaker DeLeo, last night I was working on an introduction and I had like 4 pages. And then I got to a point where I said, but I got to the point where I said, there are no words that could describe what you mean to us, so. On the other hand, there's Joe Boncour. And speaking of Joseph Boncour, our Senator, Joseph Boncour, I'd like to offer the microphone and the podium to you. Bear with me, I just want to turn the volume up. Sure. Okay, try that.
All right, thank you, Ed. And Speaker, I will say, the introductions weren't long, but at least you got your name right. So I'm Joe Boncour. I'm the state senator from representing Revere. No, it's just fine. I wanted to join the Speaker and the rep in thanking the Revere Chamber for putting on this incredible event. Thank you to Bob for all the great work you do, and Michael Nicastro and your board, day in and day out, working with the elected officials. And I think this is a great display of that, and it gives the business leaders in the community a great opportunity to let us know what's important to you. So you'll be hearing from us a little bit, but we certainly want to hear from you, not just today, but each and every day. Because, when I come to Revere, it's the same faces at every event. And it just rings true to me how important the business community is in the fabric of this community. Working with not only the state officials, but of course, our great mayor, Brian Arrigo, and the city councilors and city council each and every day. And fostering this relationship is so important to the economic growth and stability of this great city. So I just want to thank you all for being here today. Thank some of our quasi-governmental agencies like Massport and the MWRA. It's always great to have you as partners in our community as we talk about this stuff. And I will say that our state delegation, as the Speaker alluded to, and he never leaves a lot on the bone. Following the Speaker, I will follow him anywhere. I'll let you know that. I'll follow you anywhere. But it's difficult. It's difficult because he doesn't leave a lot to talk about. But we have a great working relationship with State Rep Rosalie Vincent, who is an incredible advocate and a passionate advocate, and working in the State House really served her well before taking on this role, because Revere was never left behind. Revere was always at the table, and she's continually fought for Revere and, of course, her beloved beach. Which I know is going to talk to. I'm going to leave you that. Speaker didn't leave me a lot to talk about. We'll leave you the beach to talk about. But the Speaker of the House, Revere is served so well by having the speaker, because as he does travel around the Commonwealth, and he alluded to North Adams where he gets a better introduction, he doesn't forget where he comes from, and he doesn't forget to take care of those who are in his own backyard in the communities of Winthrop or Revere. And that's reflective not just in some of the local earmarks that he talked about, but in the entire state budget. Massachusetts, as most of you have heard and known, is under very difficult economic stresses. Revenues are projected to be very low. And when we meet a $40 billion budget, each year the state legislature is asked to do a lot more with a lot less. But I think the Senate President, as well as the Speaker, have delivered a very responsible budget to the governor's desk for fiscal year 18. And some of the local concerns and local focus is truly met in that budget. And you can see the Speaker's heart coming true when he talks about unrestricted governmental aid, which is your Chapter 90 money. It's an all-time high for that type of funding in some of the toughest financial times. And Revere has been a big beneficiary of that. Revere will see a 4% increase this year in unrestricted governmental aid, the Chapter 90 money. When we're talking about schools and early education and education, this has also been a focus of the state budget, and Revere is going to see a 6% increase in state money dedicated to local aid. And public safety is also important. I know the Speaker spoke about some of the state police initiatives, but even in Revere alone, the Revere Barracks will see about a $1.1 million increase to their budget for local directed patrols in the city. And some of the other things we've covered around public safety, I think, is a $50,000 earmark to Revere's substance use disorder initiative. So the Revere SUDI in this year's budget will receive $50,000 to aid in the incredible work that they're doing. So I think that's very important. The Speaker alluded to the money for the earmark for the Revere Chamber of Commerce, and given this beautiful backdrop we have this time, I know they're putting that money to good use. But in all honesty, it's so important to what we're doing at the Commonwealth when we're working with business partners like you. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the policy that I see coming through the legislature in this session, and how it relates to a business community and the overall economic development of the Commonwealth. And it's really in three areas that I see, and that's housing, transportation, and criminal justice reform, which the Speaker has dealt with. I think those are three areas in which you will see something coming from Beacon Hill in this next session. And I'm happy to report I was named the chair of the Housing Committee in the Senate. And I think housing, as we look at it across the Commonwealth, when we talk about business development, economic development, we need to talk about housing because it's so important. In this Commonwealth, about 50% of our workforce is going to be retiring by 2030. So think about that. 50% of our workforce is retiring. Those people are not going anywhere. They're gonna remain in place. To fill that role, by 2040, we're going to need about 500,000 new units of development. We have to place about 639,000 people in this Commonwealth as it exists. And the answer to that is housing. We need to develop more housing. We need smart growth plans in place to ensure that to meet our business demands and the growing demands of the chambers, not just here, but all across the Commonwealth, that we're giving people an opportunity to be housed. And I know the Speaker kind of foreshadowed this, but as Massachusetts was named, the #1 livable state in the country, it's ranked 47th in housing affordability. So there's more that we need to do around housing that is affordable. Housing that's affordable to our seniors, housing that's affordable to millennials, and I like to say I am a millennial. I'm on the tail end on the front end of it, I should say, but I am still a millennial. People who are coming out of college and graduate schools. Massachusetts has some of the best institutions of higher education, but so many people in my generation and younger have affordability problems. They can't stay in Massachusetts. They have growing student debt that some generations before us didn't have to deal with. So housing affordability is so important. But there are some answers. The legislature is right now currently working on a $1.7 billion housing bond bill, which will go a long way in solving some of those issues. That housing bond bill will invest in the preservation and the development of new housing that's affordable. $500 million will be going to local housing authorities out of that bond bill, and they will also be going towards programming like first-time home buyers loans and workforce development housing loans. Some of the loans through mass housing that were funded in the last housing bond bill will be replenished to give opportunities to people across the Commonwealth. And part of that housing bond bill is an early education piece. And Revere was a huge beneficiary of the bond money for an early education piece through For Kids Only with their Youth in Motion development on Broadway, which has been an incredible asset for this community and the youth of the community. And it's made available through bond bills like the House and the Senate are currently dealing with now. Furthermore, when we talk about housing, we need to talk about transportation in that same breath. Transportation to bring companies like GE and Amazon, they're interested in not only is there housing stock available, but what are the times that people are going to sit in traffic to get to work, and how are we moving people throughout the Commonwealth? And we need some serious investment, I think, in that area. We are number 2 in the country, only behind LA and the amount of time that we sit in traffic and congestion. So there needs to be investments made in our transportation infrastructure, roadways, as well as our public transit line. And that costs money. The MBTA currently, as we stand here today, is at a $7.2 billion state of good repair deficit, which means we need to infuse $7.2 billion into that system to get it to go. Our local roads are at about highways and bridges, about a $5 billion state of good repair deficit. So we need funds, we need funding, we need investment. We have a vehicle for that coming through. The House and the Senate and Constitutional Convention voted to put on the ballot what's been known as the Fair Share Tax Amendment, or you might know as the Millionaire's Tax. And the Millionaire's Tax would tax 9% a surcharge on persons who make $1 million or more in this Commonwealth. That money is specifically to be earmarked to 2 areas: education and transportation. And we need help in the business community. The legislators we've put that on the ballot for everyone, but we need the business community to realize how important transportation and investment in our public transportation systems, what that means to businesses and the economic growth of our Commonwealth. So that'll be on the ballot in 2018. I look forward to working with you all. You'll be hearing a lot more from me on that, and I hope the rest of the delegation. So as we talk about what's coming through the legislature, as most of you know, previous to serving in this role, I was a public defender in East Boston Division of Boston Municipal Court and Chelsea District Court, which is the main court that serves this city. And it really was the impetus to make me to run, to seeing the problems that ravage our criminal justice system. And it's just, my timing has been incredible because this session, as we start the session, there's been an agreement by the House, the Senate, and the Governor's Office to take on criminal justice reform. Criminal justice reform hasn't been reformed, criminal justice system hasn't been reformed in nearly 60 years. And since it's been reformed, it's interesting to point out that we're locking up and incarcerating about 4 times as many people per capita as we were when we did our last wave of criminal justice reform. In Massachusetts, there's about 20,000 people incarcerated in our Commonwealth. If our Commonwealth were a country unto itself, we'd have the highest rate of incarceration, greater than any other country in the civilized world. So when we think about that, we need to realize that our criminal justice system needs to do more. It needs to do more on the front end in diversion programs and meeting people at the front door of the courthouse, assessing what their issue is, whether their issue is poverty, mental health, or addiction, and diverting them away from the court system and diverting them into a program where they can get the help they need. This is some of the stuff we're working on. That's on the front end of criminal justice reform. On the back end of criminal justice reform is dealing with people in once they get out of the court system and doing away with some of the unnecessary fees and fines that they face when they get out of court that keep them on probation and parole going forward. This is a huge impediment. When someone comes out of the court system and is on probation and has lost their license because of the crime they allegedly committed, that serves as an incredible impediment for that person to go out and get a job. If they have fees and fines they need to pay, that serves as an impediment for them to go out, to get their own apartment, and to become a productive member of society again. So I'm happy to report that the House and the Senate are in agreement. I know the forms of that may be different, but we're committed to working together and working together to do better for the Commonwealth. And I'll just add that it has been an incredible experience in the last year and a half to serve this city, to represent this city on Beacon Hill. And I look forward to doing this good work with all of you in this room for many years to come. So thank you very much. And
Thank you, Senator Boncory. That's what happens when you give a Frenchman an Italian name. And you were saying earlier that the speaker didn't leave much meat on the bone. Well, you found quite a bit of meat, I think. It was very good, very insightful. Next, I would like to invite up Rosalie Vincent, our representative. Stay.
Thank you, Bob. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Bob Upton. Thanks, Ed DeVoe, Mayor Arrigo, and the entire chamber for inviting me here this morning. The challenge of being the last speaker is not to be repetitive. So I want to thank my colleagues for saving Revere Beach for me. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Senator Boncory. But before I do, I just want to say how important it is for me to take a minute to thank my colleagues in the legislature. Senator Boncory is a new friend, and we've grown to be very good friends in a short time, and he's been amazing to work with. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much, Senator. I appreciate all you do for me. And Speaker DeLeo, I don't know what I can say about you other than the fact that you have been an amazing advocate for the city of Revere from the time I stepped in and even before. There's not a day that goes by that I don't ask for a favor or something for our city of Revere, and you're not there 100% for me. You have no idea how much I value your friendship and how much I appreciate all you do for the city of Revere that I love so dearly, so thank you. And Mayor Arrigo and the City Council and the School Committee, thank you also for being a friend and knowing that if I need anything from you, you're always available. So thank you. So enough with the thank yous. Now, when I first started to think about what I would say today, I was reminded of a really wonderful documentary WGBH aired a while back. They had a segment called Boston, the Way It Was, Part 4, Revere Beach. I'm not sure how many of you saw this, but for those who haven't, I would strongly suggest you see it. The series takes us back to the turn of the century, when Revere was in its heyday, when it was a destination. It also brought me back to my own childhood and all the marvels and wonders that so many of us, our parents and our grandparents, enjoyed back then. And while there is no more cyclone roller coaster, custard cones have been replaced by the banana boat, and yesterday's narrow gauge is today's blue line, the economic engine Revere Beach once was is within our grasps once again. Our beach is the heart and soul of our city, and aside from our people, the beach is by far Revere's most valuable asset. Those of us here recognize that, and together with vision, determination, and a lot of hard work, we've begun to realize our efforts. 10 years ago, who would have ever envisioned the Revere Beach Partnerships International Sand Sculpting Festival would become the largest in the world. Well, we like to say world, but it's definitely in the country. But I think it's pretty close to the world. They bring over 750,000 people from all over to our little corner of the state. 30 years ago, who would have thought that our beach and its water quality would be cleaner than Waikiki? Yes, our beach, America's first public beach, a destination on the National Registry of Historic Places. As the newly appointed chair of the Revere Beach Design Review Board, I've been given a bird's eye view of the future of this gem of the North Shore, and the future looks bright. This is truly an exciting time to step into this role because the board's job is to ensure that proposed design plans along America's first public beach are suited to the historic characteristics of the Revere Beach Reservation. And although it's only been a few months, it's been great working with Revere's Director of Economic Development, Bob O'Brien, and consultant and fellow board member, Paul Rupp, on the many developments that are coming into the pipeline. City, state, and federal officials and groups like the Lixie Hotel Group, JBX Developers, and many others are working hard to bring first-class development to our beach. And the state has stepped up once again to demonstrate its commitment to ensuring that they have a pristine and well-maintained beach to develop. In addition to the Design Review Board, there's also the Metropolitan Beaches Commission, which is an important part of the city of Revere and plays an important role. Along with Speaker of the House Bob DeLeo, Senator Boncory, and the commission, we were able to secure over $1 million in funds in this year's budget to provide maintenance, staffing, and free family events on our urban beaches. As well, we were able to put additional funding for dedicated state police patrols to ensure our public safety. A clean, safe, bustling beach will only enhance and encourage economic development on the boulevard and the surrounding area. And finally, while large commercial development is critically important to all of us, I want you to know how much I value the role small business plays in the foundation and in the fabric of our community. As the granddaughter of Italian immigrants who settled in Revere and founded Giannino's Greenhouses, a local business that was a fixture in our city for over 90 years, I understand the challenges you face. So please, if there's an issue, a piece of legislation, or anything that affects you or your business, let us know. That's why we're here for. Please, give us a call. In closing, I am extremely proud and humbled that at this stage in my life, I have been given the incredible opportunity to serve the people and the city that I love so dearly, and to work with all of you as we collectively strive to make Revere an even better place to live, work, and play. Thank you all.
Thank you, Representative Vincent. That concludes the comments from our delegation. I think you'll find that they're a great group of people to be working with. We at the Chamber think very highly of them and really appreciate them taking the time out from their busy schedule to be here today. I hope you all found their information informative. Before I bring up the president of the Chamber for closing remarks, I did want to recognize the two event sponsors, Gate Residential Properties and Arrow Street for sponsoring this event. Two great organizations within the city that are members of the board. At this point, we'd also like to ask the speakers to come back up so that we could offer them some tokens of our appreciation for being here today. Speaker DeLeo, Representative Vincent, Senator Boncory. Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. Yep, got it. My pleasure. And Senator Boncory. All right, thank you. We'll get a couple of pictures here, and we'll have a couple of words from President Mike Nicastro. And while we're waiting for that to occur, I do want to also recognize Revere TV. They're always here for us. And for many events. Being a past board member on Revere TV, they've always been near and dear to my heart. So if you want to go back and hear some of the remarks, or you couldn't hear the remarks today, you can go to Revere TV on YouTube or on Channel 8. Yeah. Thanks again, Revere TV. And now, President Mike Nicastro.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you. Great job as usual. I want to thank everybody for coming this afternoon. It's been a wonderful event, as you can see. Thank our great state delegation with Speaker DeLeo, Senator Boncory, Representative Vincent, and our Mayor Brian Arrigo, our city councilors and school committee people that are here. I also want to thank the men and women of our awesome military for being in the house today, keeping us safe. Thank you for your service. Before I begin my closing remarks, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my great friend from Chelsea, President of the Chelsea City Council, Leah Robinson. I wasn't going to let it slip by without recognizing you, my friend. The business of the chamber is business. And to take a phrase from Representative Vincent, small business are the economic engine of the state. They employ the most people, who in turn pay their fair share of taxes, which go into the Treasury, which fund many of the wonderful programs that the state has. The opioid crisis is real. We see it in the newspapers every day. People are dying, our young people are dying. One of the initiatives that the chamber is going to be involved in a multi-chamber event, is to have an opioid workshop that focuses on opioid addiction in the workplace and what we can do to help businesses to address this stigma. How does it cost us economically for lost hours in the workplace, and certainly the tragedies that happen when we have our young people dying. So more to come about that. But again, one of the things I've learned before when making remarks is be honest, be simple, and be brief. So thank you again for coming, everybody. Bob? Oh, one other thing. Thank you to Marguerite Upton for all the hard work that she did today and attracting the wonderful crowd that we have.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Michael, thank you so much. I would like to just ask the executive board of the Chamber of Commerce and our board of directors to please remain at the close of this event. We'd like everyone to come up front so we can get a nice photo up with you all. I would also like to remind you that on the back, the reverse side of today's agenda, are a list of upcoming events, some of which will include, we're part of a co-sponsorship with the Columbus Day Parade. We're supporting the Fall Fair on September 23rd. The Columbus Day Parade fundraiser is on October 7th. The Columbus Day Parade is on October 9th. We have a giving tree that's going to be, I believe it's December 8th, but we'll be getting all of that information out to each of you. And again, we thank you for your support. We thank the sponsors, Arrow Street and Red Gate, or Gate Residential, for their sponsorship, and of course, Ed DeVoe for being the chair of this event. Thank you very much for your time and your support for the Revere Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.